The conversation, Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida. Congressman, I wonder if you can talk about the way that Democrats have responded to this. We've seen a clamoring from the grassroots for more fight from your party. Is what Senator Chris Van Hollen doing the right answer to that demand?
Well, thanks, Allie. Thanks for having me. I mean, so what the senator's doing, obviously, is that's his representative. So he's doing what he thinks is necessary on behalf of his constituents. As far as the Democrats are concerned, I agree with the analysis of the previous panel, which is, look, the immigration debate is to the side. This is about a Supreme Court order. And so we can have a different discussion on immigration. And the Democratic Party is a big tent on that. But on this issue, it was a 9-0 ruling by the Supreme Court. You might not like the ruling. Lord knows there are Supreme Court rulings people don't like all the time. But you have to obey the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said 9-0, you got to bring him back. He's got to get due process. And so as we're dealing with immigration, people have to get due process. That's clear. The court has said that. And the Trump administration needs to listen to the Supreme Court. That's why this is getting a lot more traction. It's not just about one individual. It's all about whether the Trump administration is going to listen to the Supreme Court. And if not going to listen to the Supreme Court on this issue as a test case, then it's the question of how far are they willing to push.
Congressman, let's turn the conversation to the reason we had already booked you to have you on the program, which is to talk about gun control efforts and particularly what happened in Florida yesterday at Florida State University in Tallahassee. You've been working even before the tragic events of yesterday to try to push the White House to keep in place the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention and all of the efforts that you've taken. You were, of course, a student at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School, and you represent that district. You'd put in place efforts to try to enact gun prevention methods, but the things that you had done now seem to have disappeared from the roster of things that the White House is doing. Tell us what the situation is with the efforts that you had taken and what you're hoping to do to get those controls back in place.
Well, obviously, there's two separate pieces to that. In D.C., in the last couple of years, we had worked with the Biden administration, and we got the Office of Gun Violence Safety. That was Maxwell Frost's bill that they then, put into the White House. And the reason that office was important is one of the things we saw when we had a mass shooting is that there was tremendous disorganization on the ground afterwards of all the resources, reunification centers. And so this office was going to help with the response, right? FEMA doesn't do this. So this was going to help bring government response together and have a unified command of all of these different local, state, and federal resources. Unfortunately, the Trump administration got rid of that. That was a tremendous mistake. Because, whether they support gun violence prevention, which they don't, this was an office that helped people. It helped families. So we're trying to get that back in place. On the Florida standpoint, look, we have the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Bill, which I passed in Florida in a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and got Rick Scott to sign it. And that raised the age to 21 to buy a gun, 3-day waiting periods, and red flag laws. By the way, those red flag laws have been used 21,000 times in the last 7 years. Law enforcement has been using those. In the case at FSU, right, look, we have to get more details, but maybe, a lot of these safe storage bills, which have stalled in years past, which are very popular, could have helped here. I want to point out one thing, though. He was 20 years old. He had to take his mom's handgun because that was the only access to a weapon he had. Because of the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Bill, he was unable to go to a gun store, buy 2 AR-15s, unlimited rounds of ammunition, and body armor. Had he been able to do that, had the law in Florida not existed, what we saw at FSU yesterday wouldn't be 2 people, it'd be 30. And so while we weren't able to prevent what happened, the law that was in place in Florida mitigated what happened in tremendous capacity. But that doesn't mean we can't be doing more so that we don't have more families dealing with this. What I saw in Parkland 7 years ago and what we have seen since then around the country, when you watch parents put their teenagers in a box because all they did was send them to school or send them to a movie theater, it is the worst thing you can ever imagine.
Democratic Congressman Jared Moskowitz of Florida. So grateful for you being here, and also thank you so much. The point Caddy made.